In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front brake calipers on this Ford Excursion. Located right behind your front wheels, let's get started. Use a 21mm socket and remove all 8 lug nuts, and then we can pull the wheel off. Let's disconnect the ABS wire off of the brake hose. Just pull these rubber grommets out, this to give us extra slack. And now let's remove the two 21mm bolts holding the caliper and bracket onto the front axle. Leave this one partially threaded in, undo the bottom one. This will hold the caliper up here. Finish removing the top bolt. Set it aside. Now you can pull the caliper right off the rotor. With the caliper pulled off, let's remove the pads. Just push them towards the inside, just like this. Looks like these have these little spring tabs. That's all right. There's the other one. If your caliper or pads have these springs that push them apart, take those off as well. And now let's put the caliper up on the leaf spring so it doesn't pull on the brake hose. Let's take the new caliper and separate the bracket from the caliper itself. Use a 17mm socket, break both the slider pin bolts free. Set those aside, move the caliper aside, and we're going to focus on the bracket. We're going to have to lubricate the areas where the anti-rattle clips clip on, just a thin layer. I'm using some silicone paste. If you have brake grease, you can use that, but if you are using silicone paste, make sure it's rated for brakes, for high temperatures. Otherwise, it's going to melt as the brakes heat up and start running. That'll get on the pads and the rotors, and you don't want that. So just a thin layer, because if you put too much, you can also have it squeeze out. Right in here is where the rotor rides. And if it squeezes out in there, well, it's going to get on the rotor. Take the anti-rattle clips and snap them on. Make sure you have the correct side. So this spring needs to be towards the, well, this bridge of the caliper on both sides. This way would be incorrect, just like that. It has a little hook on both sides on the bottom. That's going to have to hook on over the caliper. Make sure it's pressed on all the way. Spin this around, and we'll do the same thing over here. Just a little bit of silicone paste. And the anti-rattle clips. Make sure they're all fully seated. Now you're going to want to take the slider pins, remove them from the boot, and we're going to add some grease. This is not enough. This is basically just here so that it doesn't rust while it's being stored on the shelf and being transported. So I'm going to take some of my silicone paste, pack it inside the boot right here. The folds of the boot will store it so that it can be spread out during usage. I'm going to put a little bit on the slider. You can't put too much on it though, because it will just get wiped off as you try to insert it through the boot. Just like that, push it in, get any air out by squeezing the pin and the boot at the same time. Give this a couple twists, wipe off any excess grease that's here, and we'll do the same to the other slider pin. Make sure these operate smoothly. Perfect. Let's get this caliper bracket on the vehicle. Let's put the caliper bracket back on. Have your 2 bolts ready. Line them up and start them in. Snug them up. The torque on these 2 will be between 141 and 191 foot-pounds. I'm going to go for 190 on both. It's on the higher end. Let's put the pads on. Neither of these get any wear indicators, so slide them in at an angle and then flip them, or spin them I should say. That's going to seat them in place. Make sure they can move somewhat freely. If your pads had these springs, install them right into these cutouts on the top and the bottom, but hold the pads. You don't want them to fly apart. These springs do put outward pressure on them. Take the caliper, slide it over the pads and the bracket. Make sure these pins are going to line up. Get these bolts in, start them in. The torque for these 2 bolts is between 16 and 30 foot-pounds. I'm just going to go for 30. Let's remove the new banjo bolt with the 2 copper washers that are provided on the new caliper. Take those off. Leave one on the banjo bolt. Set the other one aside. Right behind it, you'll see the bleeder screw. Pop off the rubber cap, and with a 10mm wrench, open it up. This is so that once we put the hose on, it's just going to automatically start gravity bleeding. With a 14mm socket, undo the banjo bolt off of the old caliper. Have a collection bucket underneath for the fluid to drain into. Take the hose off. Now you can remove your caliper, set it aside. Drain it first though. Now inspect the brake hose, wipe it down. This one's rusted, but it's not in too bad of shape, and neither of the 2 copper washers stuck to the hose. You want to make sure that doesn't happen, otherwise they would double gasket and you would not have a proper seal. With this wiped off, grab the new banjo bolt, then take your banjo bolt, put it through the hose with one of the washers and make sure it's going in the right direction. That way this can be properly clamped onto the caliper. On the other side, put the other washer on, kind of sandwiching the hose in between. Bring it over to the caliper and thread it on. This new banjo bolt is also a 14mm in size. Bottom it out slowly. Just give it a quick snug so it stops leaking. And now let's torque it. Torque this banjo bolt to 26 foot-pounds. What you're looking to do here is just squish those 2 copper washers, so if you're unable to torque this, just do your best to tighten it up. While we installed our brake hose, the gravity bleed is done. There's clean, fresh fluid coming out of the bleeder screw, so we're going to close this off. Now, this should have taken care of most, if not all, of the air in the system. However, you still might have to do a full manual brake bleed at the end. You'll see how to do this at the end of the video. For now, I'm just going to close this up, snug it, and let's clean everything off and then cap the bleeder screw. Wipe it all down. Use some brake parts cleaner and spray all of this where the brake fluid leaked so you can get it all off. Reinstall the cap for the bleeder screw. Resecure the ABS wire onto the brake hose on these 2 rubber grommets. Underneath the hood, on the driver's side of the engine compartment, you'll find your master cylinder reservoir. Wipe it off if it has a lot of debris. You don't want that contaminating the fluid that's in here. Turn the cap counterclockwise and pull it off. If you read carefully, you'll see that it says to only use .3 brake fluid, so make sure that's what you have on hand and make sure you have plenty of it because this is quite a large master cylinder reservoir. Now let's top off the master cylinder up to the max line. Reinstall the cap. Let's get the wheel back on. Put on all 8 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern to seat the wheel evenly. And then also in a cross pattern, we're going to torque them to 148 foot-pounds. A 148 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Here we go. Double check them if you'd like. Underneath the hood on the driver's side of the engine compartment, you'll find your master cylinder reservoir. Wipe it off if it has a lot of debris. You don't want that contaminating the fluid that's in here. Turn the cap counterclockwise and pull it off. If you read carefully, you'll see that it says to only use .3 brake fluid, so make sure that's what you have on hand and make sure you have plenty of it because this is quite a large master cylinder reservoir. Next, I want to remove all of the brake fluid that's here, and you can do that by using either a vacuum pump with a little reservoir on it or a fluid transfer pump, whatever you have that's going to get in here with a little hose and remove the fluid. Now fill up the master cylinder with .3 brake fluid all the way to the max line. Reinstall the cap. It's time to start bleeding these calipers, and on this vehicle we want to start at the right rear wheel. That's the passenger side rear. After bleeding that caliper, move over to the left rear. Then you're going to top off the master cylinder, make sure it stays full. Then move over to the right front caliper, bleed that, and the last one will be the left front caliper. At that point, you're going to want to top the master cylinder off again and feel the pedal. If it feels like there's still air in the system, continue bleeding in the same sequence, basically just repeat it until you're satisfied with the brake pedal feel. Now we have an assistant inside the vehicle ready to pump up the brake pedal and hold pressure. After a few pumps, as they hold, I'm going to open up the bleeder screw and fluid, potentially air, will come out of this bleeder screw. I also have this collection receptacle with a hose attached to it, so I don't make a mess, but of course a collection bucket would work just fine as well. At this point, I'm going to wait for them to tell me they're ready to hold. All right, they're holding pressure. So open this up with a 10mm wrench. There we go, we got some air. Go ahead and pump again. All right, they're holding. We're going to do this until there are no more air bubbles coming out of the bleeder screw. Okay, go again. Holding. Okay, this was clean. Let's do it one last time. Go ahead and pump. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. I snugged this back up. I'm going to remove my collection hose. Now, if your brake caliper had a cover, of course you'd want to cover this back up. For me, I'm just going to wipe this down, make sure there's no brake fluid. If there is any, you can use some brake parts cleaner and rinse it off. And at this point, you would do the same exact thing to the other side, that is the left rear caliper, and then of course top off the master cylinder after you've bled both of these rears. Now let's top off the master cylinder up to the max line. Reinstall the cap. Now we're at the right front caliper. We have bled both rears and topped off the master cylinder. So let's take the cap or the boot off of this bleeder screw. This one has one, so we're going to save it. And I'm going to put my hose on here. This also takes a 10mm wrench to break free. I'm going to have my assistant pump up the brake pedal now and create pressure. Go ahead and pump. All right, they're holding pressure, so I'm going to open this up. All right, lots of air on this one. Go ahead and pump again. All right, this one was clean at the end. Let's do it one more time. Go ahead and pump. This was good. Let's do it one last time. Go ahead and pump. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. I got nice clean fluid. I'm going to remove my hose, wipe this off, spray it down if necessary, and cover this back up so that it doesn't get clogged up and rust. At this point, we're going to bleed the left front, do the caliper the exact same way, and then we'll top off the master cylinder one last time. Top off the master cylinder all the way to the max line. Right about there. Perfect. We'll cap this off. At this point, if you are unsatisfied with how the brake pedal feels, you think there's more air, repeat the bleed in the same exact sequence until you are satisfied. And of course, don't forget to keep that master cylinder topped off at all times. Now put the wheels back on. The wheel torque is 148 foot-pounds on all 4 wheels.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.